Créons d'abord une solidarité de fait.
On 9th May 1950, the birth of the European Union was based on unity and peace. But as time went on, this enormous union of 27 countries is now looking for ways to secretly get out the back door.
A high-profile corruption scandal has rocked the European Parliament.
From high-profile, corrupted members,
corruption, bags of cash were actually found in her home.
See Ursula von der Leyen reads the most criminal woman in all of Europe.
to unacceptable election winnings,
And leave our kids alone. Full stop. End of discussion.
to powerful members feeling excited about finally exiting the Union.
The United Kingdom will not be the last member state to leave the European Union.
European Parliament seems to be haunted by endless scandals involving high-profile members.
The number of soul-shaking incidents the EU witnessed in the last few decades was never witnessed for almost a century. And despite the amazing benefits EU members share with each other, it is astonishing to notice how the tables have turned.
Corruption is a crime. It has to be prosecuted.
Have a look at this data, which shows the level of corruption in the government of EU countries. With the majority of them falling in the red line, Croatia is leading against them all. Here is another piece of data that shows how members of parliament, judges, bankers, and even police are involved in corruption activities. Published by Transparency International, this report is just a tiny glimpse of what is hiding behind the scene.
Events like that, corruption like that, erodes the trust of the public in the institutions.
So does this mean that the EU is on the verge of collapse? And how long can the EU members trust each other? Since the UK left the EU in January 2020, many people have been under the misconception that the UK will not be able to grow without the support of the EU, and it will beg to rejoin the supernation so that it can enjoy the same economic benefits as before. Well, there is no doubt that it was a valid argument, because in 2022, the EU generated a nominal GDP of $16.6 trillion. That's about 1/6 of the nominal GDP created by the entire world, making the EU the third largest economy after the US and China. But the UK was smart enough to foresee the future crisis of the EU. More than a decade ago, it was able to witness a black hole that could soon consume the entire European Union. And that black hole emerged after the 2008 financial crisis that led to a sudden jump in debts from European countries. While powerful countries like Germany and Netherlands were laying down a procedure to deal with such crises in the future, weak countries like Greece, Portugal, Ireland, Spain, and Cyprus were diving deeper into their pool of debts. One such country that shook the entire EU was Greece. So before the financial crisis, Greece took billions of dollars of loans from various banks in Europe. And the moment the 2008 crisis showed its picture, Greece was sitting on a pile of debt it could not pay. Now the question is, why would European banks give billions of dollars to a country that seems unable to pay its debt? Well, the ugly truth is, despite hiring their best men, the European banks could not identify the creditworthiness of Greece because financial services companies like JP Morgan Chase and Goldman Sachs helped Greece throw dust in the eyes of the banks. What they did was they created financial products that allowed Greece to hide all its borrowing or liabilities. As everything looked clean to the banks, they started providing cash in advance to the country in exchange for making payments on a future date. And Greece considered this enormous flow of cash as a piece of cake. So without creating any debt repayment plan, Greece recklessly spent the entire money until the 2008 crisis showed its true colors. Still, Greece did not have to worry about anything because it was part of this gigantic European Union. As the EU has the responsibility to support each country, International Monetary Fund jumped in to handle all the pressure and provided a rescue loan of 110 billion euros. Now, in order to get their money back, IMF imposed harsh conditions on Greece, forcing them to cut down their country's budget and increase the level of taxes on their citizens. However, IMF failed to realize what would happen next. The crushing effect of inflation and unprecedented level of taxes forced citizens to raise their voices against the government, openly directing IMF to stay out of the picture. Despite the rescue plan, the debt level of Greece further increased to 318 billion euros, leading to a huge 25% drop in their GDP. On the one hand, Greek Prime Minister Alexis Spiros blamed IMF for such crisis, while on the other, IMF issued an apology for underestimating the effects of forcing Greece to increase taxes. Moreover, the rising debt of Greece dragged European Union with it. The decreasing value of the euro even forced economic experts to argue that it is better to expel Greece from the Union than to keep it. Now, as supporting and helping as IMF looks, there is a dark side to its actions that few people could notice. Because instead of supporting that debt-trapped nation, it secretly cripples their economy to make powerful nations stronger. According to leaked documents in May 2010, it was revealed that IMF intentionally provided bailout money to Greece so that they could pay back the amount they borrowed from the banks of powerful countries like France and Germany. This is why IMF forced Greece to put the burden on their citizens so that even if they go into severe poverty, they pay back France and Germany, thus making developed countries powerful enough to exercise control over weaker countries. The situation becomes much worse when individuals sitting at the highest table of the EU decide to compromise with their trust. For several months, a Belgian investigative judge, Michael Claes, was following the movements of Eva Kaili, the fifth vice president of the European Union. His reason behind the secret investigation was this speech when she openly praised Qatar for achieving great milestones.
ILO said that Qatar is a front-runner in labor rights, abolishing kafala and reducing minimum wage, despite the challenges that even European companies are denying to enforce this law. They are a new generation of intelligent, high-educated people. They helped us to reduce the tension with Turkey. They helped us with Afghanistan to save activists, children, women. They helped us, and they are peace negotiators. They are good neighbors and partners. We can help each other to overcome the shortcomings. They achieved the impossible already. Thank you.
Since this speech, Michael became suspicious about Eva's actions towards Qatar. Soon he became convinced about a possible corruption and money laundering activity between the two. However, as Eva enjoyed parliamentary immunity, Michael was looking for a perfect movie-like moment to catch her red-handed. Finally, on 9th December 2022, the timing could not be more perfect when he witnessed Eva's father, Alexandros Kallis, staying in a hotel. That day, Michael believed that Alexandros might be dealing on behalf of her daughter with Qatar delegates, and the deal is being conducted inside a hotel. Michael immediately directed Belgian authorities to arrest Alexandros if he is witnessed with a bag outside the hotel he was staying in. Surprisingly, Michael's intuition was right in every word he said. The moment Alexandros walked outside with a bag, the authorities arrested him and discovered the bag full of cash. Within the next few minutes, Michael, accompanied by a special police team, headed straight to Kaili's home. As they entered her house, without saying any word, Kaili started crying and did not resist her arrest. The Belgian police also raided 16 homes and people who they believed were involved in this money laundering scheme. One of them was Eva's husband and parliamentary assistant Francesco Giorgi. And during the raids, the investigators managed to recover 600,000 euros in cash.
Early termination of the office of our Vice President of the European Parliament, Ms. Eva Kaili.
Even those who vow to fight against corruption are already swimming in its pool.
Corruption is a crime. It has to be prosecuted.
This is Ursula von der Leyen, the President of the European Commission, which is the executive branch of the European Union. As she sits in the most powerful position in the EU, Ursula herself is a living example of trust between European countries. But in April 2021, everything changed when the New York Times reported about a possible corruption activity between Ursula and COVID vaccine manufacturing company Pfizer. While conducting the sale of the COVID-19 vaccine for the EU, it was discovered by the European Ombudsman that she negotiated with Pfizer CEO Albert Bourla for an undisclosed amount. and received a portion of that negotiation in her pocket. But when the request under the Freedom of Information Act was made, she claimed that the messages about her conversation had been deleted. Moreover, she created another excuse by stating that information related to vaccines remains confidential under the EU's budget. Now, it might be easy for her to make these false statements, but if you look closer, corruption activities conducted by the President and Vice President of the EU are no less than the actions of a country's leader. Imagine the consequences that could happen if the President or Vice President of the U.S. is caught in a corruption activity. Not only do such acts break the confidence between EU members, but they also convince other nations to break apart. So, apart from what we have seen so far, it is worth noticing that the EU as a whole is stronger and more resilient than other nations. The member countries get to enjoy the free movement of citizens, goods, and services, and even maintain common policies on trade, agriculture, and regional development. The benefit of living in Europe has also attracted millions of illegal migrants in the last decade. In 2014, more than 170,000 illegal migrants arrived in Italy by sea, an enormous jump from just 42,000 in 2013. This also puts massive pressure on European countries. According to a BBC report, there was a sudden increase in the crime rate related to people who migrated from Africa. And as some of the member countries have started providing them with employment opportunities, it is encouraging more illegal migrants to jump in. This was also one of the reasons why the UK decided to set itself apart from the EU.
They have torn their country, their parliament, their own party apart. Mr. Speaker, this is the beginning of the end of their precious union.
And Hungary Prime Minister Viktor Orban is all set to move away from the EU after joining hands with Russia.
MEPs are warning that Viktor Orban's meeting with Vladimir Putin on Tuesday could put the EU's joint policy on Russia at risk.
So, what are your views about the European Union? Do you think Hungary will be the next country to leave the EU? Tell us in the comments section below. I hope you like this video. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and press the like button if you like this video. Thank you so much for watching.